Welcome to Today in Space.
Welcome, everybody, to Today in Space. I am your host, as always, Alex Girofanos, and welcome to the show. This week, we've got a bunch to talk about. We've got the Launchapalooza that's underway right now, which is a bunch of launches, 5 different launches that were scheduled for the next, basically, 4 days, starting from Thursday, going through Sunday, through the weekend. There's been some delays. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about who's launching, when you can catch them, and who they're launching for. We've also got to talk about a little bit of reusability standard that's been set, a new benchmark for reusability with rockets thanks to SpaceX and their Falcon 9. We'll talk about Falcon9 B1049, which has now achieved, like we said, a new level of reusability, so I'm excited about that. And then also we're going to be talking about the Galileo Rocket that we've designed here, we've 3D printed, and we've got a lot of plans for that, so I wanted to get you guys caught up, tell you a little bit about the process of making it, and where we're headed next with it. I've got some plans. I'd like to discuss it with you and see what you guys think. And of course, as always, please feel free to reach out and let us know what you think. We're taking your feedback. It's been great to already hear some of your feedback. Jake, obviously, thanks for all your input. Steve for the idea originally, and everybody else that's reached out. Derek and everybody else. Wayne Newmeyer. I mean, all those people, really appreciate all your input. And we've got some fun stuff coming up. So let's talk about Launchapalooza, right? So Launchapalooza, a great idea, lots of rocket launches, but man, would that make a terrible festival because we've already got delays. So that would be terrible if you went to the show, you're camping out, you're ready to have a good time, and then they're like, you know what, guys, come back in like 24 hours. We need to start over. So the first delay was the launch that was supposed to happen on Thursday morning, late Wednesday night, which was for the United Launch Alliance. That was a Delta IV Heavy, which is an amazing rocket, really powerful ability to send things into orbit with lots of energy, which is awesome for a classified spy satellite, which is what they're going to be launching. The NOAA is launching the NROL 44 from Cape Canaveral Air Force Base in Florida, and that got delayed Thursday morning, and they are going to be attempting another launch early Saturday morning, late Friday night at 2:04 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time on August 29th. So look out for that. Nice late launch. The broadcast will be pretty cool. Night launches are pretty awesome because they are like a giant fireball going up into the sky, almost like the sun is rising super quickly. It's very cool. I haven't been able to see one in person, but from all the footage I've seen from my friends that are able to go down and see those launches, it's pretty cool. So we're excited for Tori Bruno and for the United Launch Alliance team to make that happen. So we wish them luck. Obviously, since it's a classified satellite, we don't know much about the payload, but I guarantee there will be people watching it and tracking its orbit regardless. So it's kind of hard to keep that a secret. But next up, we've got 2 SpaceX launches. So the first one got scrubbed. That was supposed to be on Friday. That's been rescheduled. We don't yet have a date for that. But that was for an SAO-COM 1B launch. That's for Argentina's space program. So that's very cool. What we want to do is follow up, though, on Sunday, because SpaceX, with their amazing launch cadence that they're able to have, another Starlink launch is going to happen on Sunday. So another 60 of those Starlink satellites are going to be lifted into space aboard the Falcon 9. The liftoff is supposed to happen at 10:08 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time on Sunday from NASA's Kennedy Space Center, so look out for that. So we've got our Florida launches, and then if we go to the opposite side of the world, we have RocketLab's return to flight, which we have been looking forward to since their anomaly on July 4th. They were unable to deliver their customer's payload into orbit, which is unfortunate, but it happens. I mean, it's not like SpaceX. I mean, we talk a lot about SpaceX here. SpaceX has had disasters and things not go well, and customers' satellites, payloads, whatever they were launching into space has been lost in that process. It's not new to rocketry and space. It is definitely always on the table. But what we want to do is wish RocketLab luck. They're going to be launching their Electron rocket from New Zealand at 11:05 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on Friday. So we've got, within 3-4 hours of each other, we've got multiple launches. They're going to be launching the Sequoia Earth Observation Satellite to orbit for a San Francisco company called Capella Space. And one of the space newbies, Astra, is going to be launching their first Rocket 3.1 from the Pacific Spaceport Complex in Alaska's Kodiak Island. That's 10 p.m. on Sunday. So there is a lot to be looking forward to. At all these different spots on the world, we've got rockets going into space. So it's an amazing time. I say that a lot lately because it really is an amazing time. But for space, it is. There's a lot to look forward to, a lot to look up for. So make sure to do that. We'll have the link, the originalspace.com link, so they will have updates for if there are any kind of delays. They will also have links to the actual launch broadcast. So this is a great link if you're looking forward to Launchapalooza this weekend. Check out that link in this week's episode, and that's the case for every episode. In case you're new here, we try our best to, whenever we talk about something, have something in the description of this episode so that you can not only learn more, but so that way you know what we're talking about. There's a resource to go to, which is a lot more than we can expect from today's world. So we hope you enjoy that. Next up, we need to discuss launch repeatability, launch reliability. And the amazing thing that happened is thanks to SpaceX and their Falcon9 B1049. So this Falcon 9 will have a link to it's the Wikipedia page, which is actually kept very, very well. And it has on each of these Falcon 9 launches, it has the Falcon 9 itself. It'll tell you which mission it was. There's a cool recycling sign for every time that they've reused a rocket, which I love. It also has a really interesting stat about how long it took them to turn around that rocket, which is very, very valuable because the reusability equation really only works when you're able to turn that around and launch it very quickly, because then you don't have to build as many rockets. And that's one of the things, the real challenge that the space shuttle had early on, well, throughout its whole career, which was the idea of reusability. That was the space shuttle's real achievement, was the first real reusable spacecraft of its kind. And the turnaround time just never got to the point where it was really groundbreaking, and basically the cost of it just didn't get cut down because they couldn't turn these things around fast enough. Now, if we look back at the history of the Falcon 9, especially this specific one that we're talking about, 1049B, it's a very, very interesting story. So we have the first mission, which was Telstar 18V and Apstar 5C. That was back in 2018, at the end of 2018. And the next time that was launched was 4 months later, 4 months and 1 day. So from the first launch, it took 4 months and a day to get this out. That mission was Iridium Next. The next time, it took 4 months and 13 days for Starlink Launch. It was 60 of those satellites that were launched up. The next time, it took a lot longer to get that rocket sent up. And I don't know enough about this. I can definitely give you some thoughts, but definitely know that this is just me thinking out loud. It would be interesting to know if, after the third time this launched, if this was some kind of a big delay to get this out the door. Like did it take a lot longer because after the third time you fly it, it takes more to get a rocket recertified? If we look at the date and time of everything, though, between that Starlink, the third launch, to the fourth launch, or at the end of 2019 into 2020. So it's very likely that 3 month delay from 4 months and 13 days turnaround to 7 months and 14 days, that it actually was a part of the pandemic. That could very well be the case, that there were things that had to be put in place. I mean, look, everything is delayed now, so this is not a surprise. So a 3 month bonus onto that turnaround. After that fourth flight, they brought that turnaround time, again, in the midst of this pandemic, they brought it back down to 4 months almost 5 months, 4 months, 28 days. And then they were able to turn that Falcon 9 around in 2 months and 14 days. So they were able to dramatically turn around this Falcon 9 much quicker. That was the last launch that it was able to successfully SpaceX's first time recovering a Falcon 9 for a sixth time. And I mean, just to think about how much money has been saved from having to rebuild a completely new rocket from scratch, and they're able to get this turnaround time down. It's a big testament to the core of their technology, to the core of what SpaceX's ethos is this reusability. They're getting better and better at it, and at a time that's even crazier to do this kind of thing with the pandemic and everything that's delaying everything right now. A big shout out to the engineering team and everybody that's involved with SpaceX for doing that. And I'm sure NASA and everyone else that's behind the scenes in Florida making this stuff happen. I mean, you guys are doing an incredible job. Thank you for making reusability reality. I mean, this is insane stuff. So I want to just, again, a big shout out to everyone that's involved in that. You guys are making history. And if we can get this turnaround time down to a month, man, I mean, that's going to be groundbreaking. So big shout out to the team. A historic Falcon 9, 1049B. That is a historic Falcon 9. And basically every time they seem to launch, they're making history. So thank you, SpaceX. And next up, let's start talking about Galileo. So, Galileo, you guys helped us vote on the name of this rocket. Galileo is going to be a 3D printed rocket. We first wanted to do, we started, let me start over. The Galileo rocket is our summer project. It was something to keep me busy. It was something to get you guys involved in. And it's been a lot of fun for me just to kind of dive into this process. When I was an engineer in school and I was going to graduate on time, I had all these ideas of these things that I wanted to do, but I wasn't executing on any of that stuff. And one of the things I definitely wanted to do was to build a rocket. Another thing was a rocket pack, a little more dangerous. But now these things are a little bit closer to reality, at least the rocket part, because we are sticking to essentially stuff that's already available, model rocket engine technology. And we ended up going a little bit larger on the Galileo rocket, mostly because I figured the Falcon 9 model that I had is essentially this same height, so we might as well go as big as we can for this rocket because, number one, it's so much fun to light things on fire and launch them into the sky. Why not do that? And basically what I want to do is talk to you about this specific model and why we did it. I could have done this, by myself and kind of tinkered on it and stuff like that, but I'm taking a completely different approach because I want to get you guys involved. I want you guys to be interactive in it. I want to bring ideas to the table, have you guys vote on it, help me decide, bring your ideas in because I'd love to hear what you guys are thinking, if you're learning anything, if you'd like to learn anything else, and of course if you have any ideas of things you want us to launch. I mean, obviously, send us our way. You can do that by reaching us out on social media, Today in Space Pod on Instagram and Twitter, Today in Space on TikTok, Today in Space Podcast at gmail.com, and of course our Facebook page at Today in Space Podcast. But this process is really going to change the whole way that this rocket is going to evolve, right? So, the way that we're doing this, I want this to be interactive. I want to be able to show you guys visual representations, right? I want to add that visual aspect. So bring something to the YouTube page, show you guys what this is. Obviously, we're going to try and film this as well. But I also want us to learn. I'm learning at the same time, right? I've never actually built a rocket before. I've gone to school to learn about it, but I never built it. I've never had that practical experience. So this is exciting for me too, and I'm learning as well. So that's how we're going to approach this. I really do think that the way that we're approaching this is going to change the whole design process, right? It's going to change the end game of this rocket in general. And because just launching rockets is fun. So anyways, let's get into it. This one that I have in front of me, and if you're not watching, please go check out our YouTube page. If you're just listening, I'll do my best to describe visually or at least expressively so that you can get that picture in your head. But essentially, we've got this Galileo rocket. So this was 3D printed. The main body of the rocket sits about 22 inches or so long. Basically, we printed this on our large format 3D printer, which can go up to 26 inches in height. It's basically a 26-inch cube that we can build almost anything inside of. So this ended up taking about 23 hours, basically a day, to 3D print this. And it weighs about 280 grams. I still have to actually weigh it. Now, anyone who's a model rocket I'm not going to say expert, but anyone that's launched anything, you know that the name of the game is weight. So this actual design here is just a design prototype, right? So this is just, what I like doing is iterative design. It's a really fast way to go from something that's written down on paper, and I can show you guys right here. My original design literally started right here. So basically I took the basic idea, I took the height of the Falcon 9 model rocket that I have, and basically went and used a ratio for the diameter and built something so that I could get it in my hand, so I could hold it in front of me, see what comes to mind, and we're going to develop this rocket on the fly. So every time I print a new version, it's informing me on the next step. Or is there something about the design that I may have thought in the theoretical stage, when I was drawing it out, that now that I've gotten to having it in front of me in reality, it's changed my mind. And there's definitely a lot of things that have changed since me basically writing this down on paper, and even before when we first came up with this project. I really didn't know where this was going to take us, and that's the fun thing about iterative design is every time you do a cycle of the iteration and you make a different version of it, you learn more, and the faster you can do those cycles, the faster you can develop something, and the faster you can get to your end game and make changes along the way. You're not locked into a specific design. And so that's the fun of iterative design. That's the fun of 3D printing. And now I'm combining space and 3D printing for us to be able to have some fun. So one of the things that's definitely come out of this was an idea from Jake. So Jake, thank you very much. Check him out at Jet Surgeon Borealis on Instagram. But it's something that he actually has at home, I believe, of other model rockets that he launches. Which had as you can hear it here, those who are just listening, it had a threaded bottom for the rocket that helped put the engine in place, because what most model rockets seem to employ is this little metal clip that gets put at the bottom of the rocket and holds that engine in place. Now, that makes a lot of sense from a model rocket perspective, right? You're concerned about basically giving people a cheap rocket that you can sell at a very low cost, but you can sell a lot of them, and they're able to launch rockets multiple times. And a lot of these rockets are made out of cardboard, so there's a level of reusability you can get from this simple metal clip that you get to hold that engine. Now, that's not really something we were looking to do, and I wanted to see, can we innovate that? Can we change that? And so thanks to input from people like you, Jake, and anyone else that's following along here, we're able to do this and do this quickly. So this first version, we were able to test a version. I think the folks that are watching online, you can see there's this little mount on the inside where the engine will be put in place, or that was the idea at least, and then you would screw the bottom of this engine in place and secure the rocket so that it's nice and straight, and then basically the reusable part of this would be the bottom cap at some point. We could just reprint another cap after, it's made of plastic, so we may be able to employ some kind of a coating to make it last longer. I'm thinking definitely of Stoffel Aerospace. I know they have their ceramic coating that they use on 3D printed parts where they're able to fund their space efforts with. And they're doing right now, I know they're working a lot with ballistic armor, which is very cool, but also cooling applications. So I know Stoffel Aerospace is working on that, so I know it's possible. And of course, Brian and Bell, if you guys want to reach out and talk about doing some work together, maybe doing a collaboration on this, that would be very cool. But regardless, these are things that are definitely possible and out there, right? So the things that I've learned just by printing out this first version and getting it in my hands is that, first of all, when I first designed this, it was really just a proof of concept. Can I 3D print a thread that's secure, that a cap can screw onto, and then it basically becomes one body? And that did work. So that's great. But things I've learned from it is that, obviously, if you're seeing this, the actual cap is wider than the body of the rocket. So aerodynamically speaking, that's terrible. So that's a lot of drag. That will not be good for the rocket reaching altitude. So basically what we're going to want to do is basically make the body of the rocket match the size of this threaded bottom cap, which is very easy to do in our CAD software. So we'll be able to do that. But one of the things that I'm definitely thinking about is we've got too much weight on the bottom of this rocket. So we will have to do a little bit of center of balance and making sure that this pendulum, essentially, that is this rocket, that we're controlling it from up here, not down here, because that's going to make things a lot harder. This rocket could go sideways, and that's not good. We want it to go up. So some other things. Obviously, when we 3D printed this, it was just a design. There is a lot of material that we can take off of the body of this rocket. So there's a lot of weight trimming we can do. But the cool thing about a rocket this size is that it opens us up to a lot of different ways and a lot of different missions and things that we can launch into not so much orbit, but into the air. And then, whether it's some kind of a weather system where we're actually gathering data about the atmosphere and stuff around that. My brother, who you will be meeting shortly on an episode here in the future, he is a meteorologist. He went to school for that. He also knows, he's looked into space weather, which is a whole nother thing, something that we'll definitely talk about on the podcast here at some point. But it's definitely work that we can do with him. And so we have these two versions that have kind of come out of this Galileo rocket that we're going to close up this episode with, not to make it too long. Basically, at this point, with the things that we've tried to figure out with this Galileo rocket, this kind of built-in mount system in the 3D printed rocket that holds the engine in place, and this threaded bottom that makes installing the engine potentially very easy, we can now take that and kind of split this Galileo rocket project into two paths. The first path, which is a rocket this size at this weight, even if we do shed the weight off this rocket, we're probably going to need a D-class engine for this, which is a lot more powerful, which means we're going to need a little bit more clearance when we're launching this thing, which is probably going to take a little bit longer for us to get approval for that kind of a launch window, given the area that we're in. We're luckily we have connections within the town, so we may be able to get a launch window, even if it's just for 30 minutes, to be able to do this once we're ready. Now, that's going to be great. It's going to allow us to do a lot of different fun stuff. And what I'd like to do at some point, and if there's anyone that's interested in helping out with this, obviously please feel free to reach out, especially if you're a young engineer and you want a cool project. We're going to try and recover the larger Galileo rocket with our drone that we bought. So that's a fun project to kind of think about what we could do, how we could do that. Are we going to be training a skilled pilot for this drone to be able to catch this rocket as it comes back down, floating down with its parachute? or can we somehow get it to be an automated process where the drone will do it by itself, find the rocket after it's launched, and recover it back? So we can kind of test this reusability that we tout so much on SpaceX, so we can kind of get into the nuts and bolts of it, show you guys how much work it actually takes to do that, and we can all learn in the process, right? Is it really worth it, right? So that's very fun. But the other thing that's been more of a concern for me, and something that I've, a lot of the reason we do this podcast is to help, at least in some way, have some platform to talk about science and have a place where, if you don't have the money to go to school to be an aerospace engineer, you can learn a little bit from us, right? And education is definitely something that's very important to me, and doing it in different ways and being able to reach people that really need it is very important. And right now, let me give you some context of where a lot of this comes from, right? I grew up in a town where science was not taken very seriously, to the point where a few years after I was supposed to graduate, our school wasn't going to be accredited for math and science by the state. So my brother, who was graduated a little bit after me, there was a potential that his diploma from high school would not be accredited by the state for math and science. Now, luckily, our town was able to upgrade everything and make it so that didn't happen. But now with the pandemic and everything that's going on with the already tight budgets and everything that's going on, there are going to be areas, and if you're a listener and this is happening in your area, please reach out. There's a possibility that STEM programs, science programs, children learning right now may not even have a chance to learn or have a science program. It may be on the shoulders of teachers or people in the community that will have to do after-school programs, which you got to wonder how is that going to work, especially if there's barely enough money to keep a school operational. So I think one of the cool things that has come from designing this is that this can become a very interesting STEM project that we could be able to deploy to areas where this type of thing is happening, where funding is getting cut, decisions are being made, so science is not in the community. And if that is the case, please reach out to me and let me know if that's the case. Our plan here is to make a smaller version of the Galileo rocket that will be able to help teach 3D printing, we'll be able to teach technology, we'll be able to teach rocket science, and also just tinkering, right? Which is obviously something that I am super passionate about. It's what makes me mentally healthy every day, is being able to be hands-on with stuff. It makes me happy, right? And I think it's something that can't be, there's not enough, I don't think there's enough of it. So this small STEM project is something we would like to donate, something we'd like to get to areas, potentially open this up so we can get it in communities that need it. An outdoor activity is better than an indoor activity. So if this is something we can do where the schools really, are able, or communities, even if it's parents, if you're a parent and your kid's not getting this, we can hopefully provide it. So we're brainstorming. So if you have any ideas on how to make that possible, please feel free to reach out if you want to be a part of this. We're going to try and make it open source. We are going to make it available for the most common A through C motors. And it's also something that we're going to try in the early stages here to make that you can use stuff from around your house, right? So paper towel rolls, plastic bags for parachutes. All these different things are ways that we can get kids to be interactive with science, to have something that's hands-on, kinesthetic learning, if you will. An actual real-life experience of making and then launching a rocket. And then, of course, just the learning of all of that, right? That's what we're trying to promote here. It's the kind of the big, audacious goal of this podcast for the long term, for the many years that we hope to do this podcast. And this just seems like the right time to do it. Now, is it a lot of work? Sure. So, but that is what it is. I mean, there's a need for it, and then we're going to try and do that. So if you want to be a part of that, if you want to help us figure out ways to raise some money for this so we can donate, if you want to help us figure out different ways to design it, different ways to develop basically the program that we would hand out to people, if you want to help be a part of that, please reach out, todayinspacepodcast@gmail.com. And of course on our Instagram at todayinspacepod. Just DM us, reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you, even if it's just to know that your community does need that. So it's our way of trying to give back and change the world for the way that we want it to be. If we want to help bring science to more people and the ability to learn, we should do that. So, and with everything that's going on today, we need more positivity, and we need more action to change the world in the way that we want it to be, because we can't just sit back and let anybody else do it. It's up to us. So that's it, folks. That's the exciting thing about the Galileo project, the exciting thing about iterative design, and where we hope to go with this. And so thanks to you with the Galileo project, and all of your support and being involved, it's now split into two different paths that we're able to take it in. So feel free to reach out to us. Let us know what you think. Obviously, let us know if you want to join in. Thank you for joining us. As always, please keep spreading the word. You guys are doing a fantastic job. We're putting out as many posts on the internet as possible to get our message out there. And a lot of our growth is thanks to you for liking all our posts, for sharing our videos and our content out there. This has been made possible thanks to you. So we are seeing nice, steady growth through this time, which is amazing. And again, like I said, it's all thanks to you. So thanks for being a part of this. This is Today in Space. Make sure to check out the link in this week's episode for Launchapalooza. All the different launches around the world that are happening in this next week until our next episode. We're going to have a very fun guest next week. We're going to be talking about some good stuff. And that's it, folks. Thanks for joining us. We hope you have a great weekend. Please be safe. Treat yourself well. Give yourself 5 minutes if you have to every day just to free your mind and be good to yourself. So spread love, spread science, live long and prosper, and we'll see you next time for another episode of Today in Space.